You wake in darkness. The only light creeps from the embers of a fire long extinguished. Cold stone presses against your back. The stiff wool blanket is damp with night sweat and mildew. This is your morning, and you are a servant in a 14th century English castle. Most people imagine castles as grand halls, roaring fires, and velvet tapestries. But beneath the layers of glamour are people like you, the invisible hands scrubbing, hauling, sewing, waking, obeying. This story, dear listener, is not about kings. It is about you, the one who lights the fire, not the one who warms his feet beside it. Your day begins at 4 a.m, not with an alarm, but with obligation. In the servants' quarters, a space barely worthy of name, you sleep among others, 30 or more packed into a narrow chamber, no chimney, barely ventilated. Everyone rises like startled rats when the head steward steps echoed down the corridor. First task, kindling fires in the great hall and the family's private quarters. You must gather wood from the inner stores, already running low, and navigate icy stone halls. The castle may look sturdy, but the wind cuts through its arrow slits and under every door. The Lord's hearth must be warmed before he even stirs. Even among servants, there is a hierarchy. At the top, the steward, who acts more like a middle manager than a servant. Below him, the chamberlain, the butler, and the master cook. Far beneath them, where you stand, are the scullions, the laundry maids, the turnspit boys, and the grooms. You are a scullion, the lowest of the low. Your job is to clean everything. Pots blackened by hours on the hearth, greasy ladles, moldy rushes on the hall floor, and chamber pots. Always the chamber pots. The irony of being a castle is that it's no cleaner than a peasant's hut, just bigger and harder to warm. Your hands are always raw. Soap, if you can call it that, is harsh lime made from wood ash. And water? It comes from a well in the courtyard that freezes solid every January. As the noble family begins to stir, the kitchens burst to life. Not with clamor, with discipline. Meals must be prepared with obsessive detail, regardless of whether they are eaten. You help pluck fowl, grind oats, knead bread. A feast might be planned for tonight, which means butchering pigs and preparing sauces with spices you'll never taste. There is something bitter about handling saffron and cinnamon and not knowing what they taste like. You're allowed to eat, of course, but not what they eat. Your rations are yesterday's porridge, sour ale, and black bread dense enough to crack a tooth. A castle smells like rot. There is no other way to say it. Human waste is dumped into cesspits or down chutes in the garderobe, and guess who cleans those? You. Bathing is rare. Maybe 4 times a year if you're lucky. You smell of grease, smoke, and whatever festers in the kitchen drains. Tooth care? A chew stick if you can afford it. But you can't. And so your breath mingles with those of every other grimy mouth in the great hall. Lice are simply a fact. You scratch constantly. There is no shame in it. Everyone does it. It's why hair is kept short or covered, not for fashion, but because it itches less. You may be young, perhaps 10 or 11, sold or sent here by a desperate family in need of fewer mouths to feed. Your friends or other children, all elbows and bruises, doing jobs too heavy for their size. There's no laughter in this kitchen, only quiet muttering, stolen glances, and the occasional slap from a superior who's having a bad day. Romance? Rare. A servant's life is too crowded, too tired, too full of eyes. And yet, you notice who shares firewood, who sneaks extra bread. Small acts of kindness are your only luxuries. You glimpse the Lord occasionally, perhaps once a week. He never looks at you. If he does, it's likely because something has gone wrong. A cold hearth, a spoiled dish, a stain on his robes. Punishments vary. Some are dismissed, some whipped, some sent to the stocks in the village square. You learn quickly to move quietly, obey completely, and anticipate always. Servants who survive the longest are the ones who make themselves invisible. It's easy to forget that the castle is not just a home. It's a machine. Everything has its place. The buttery for ale, the pantry for dry goods, the larder for meat. Servants scuttle between these places like blood through veins. One error, a rotten chicken, or misdelivery, and the entire household could be thrown into chaos. You learn the rhythms quickly. when the ox arrives, when the baker comes, when the Lord's hunting dogs are fed. You learn not from words, but from watching. No one trains you. You are expected to absorb. One morning, as you carry linen to the lady's chamber, you hear hushed voices. It's not gossip this time. It's fear. There's talk of war, of the Lord leaving to fight in France, of new taxes, of men being conscripted. What happens to the servants when the Lord goes to war? Who feeds them? Who protects them from thieves? Or worse, the soldiers themselves? You don't ask. You fold the linen and wait, because you are a castle servant, and asking questions is not your place. But still, you wonder, what happens when the Lord leaves, and all that's left of the servants? The Lord is gone. He left at dawn, clattering to the gatehouse in full armor, his retinue trailing behind like a steel-scaled serpent. Dust clouds his departure. The banners ripple one last time and disappear into the trees. There will be no feast this week, no music, no loud barking of orders from the great hall, only the echo of his absence. But you are still here, you and 24 other servants. The castle is quieter, but not calmer. There is no peace in a place built for defense and hierarchy, especially not when the command structure starts to fray. In the Lord's absence, authority shifts awkwardly. The steward officially takes charge, a man who was once a night scribe, and now manages inventory and punishments with equal enthusiasm. He is no warrior, but he wears a key ring like it's a sword. The steward's rule is meticulous. Every log of firewood is counted, every measure of grain recorded. Every servant is now more closely watched than ever. He cannot afford mistakes, because if anything goes wrong, the Lord's wrath will fall on him. And, like any man fearing consequences, he delegates his fear downward. To you, rations are tighter. The steward declares that flour will be rationed more strictly in the name of the household. What this means for you is stale bread, more porridge, and soup with less meat and more turnip. When the kitchen scraps diminish, even rats start to show up less. You are reminded, as your stomach growls, that your presence here is not an act of kindness. You are not cared for. You are simply maintained, like a broom or a horseshoe. And if you break, there's always another peasant child to take your place. Yet even within this machinery, there's a strange form of autonomy growing. With fewer eyes above you, whispers become longer, footsteps slower, and corners darker. Some servant sneaks sips of wine. A few vanish at night and return muddy-kneed from visits to the village. There are rules, but there are fewer enforcers now. You're tempted, but you're also afraid. The mood of a castle changes when its master leaves. The halls, once vibrating with political tension and courtly maneuvering, now echo with mundane sounds. The slop of buckets, the scraping of boots, the creak of hinges. You realize how massive the place is and how hollow. No footsteps from armored guards. No barked orders to clean the falconry. Just distant voices and the wind in the battlements. Rooms go unused. The lady's solar remains locked, heavy with incense and unread prayers. The chapel smells of extinguished candles and old sweat. You clean these places, but rarely see them in use. One evening, you're told to sweep the war room. You've never been in there before. It's small, stone-walled, and lit by one thin window. On the table, a map of France with pegs and notes. You barely understand what it means. But one word stands out: Calais. You've never seen Calais. You've never even been outside the castle walls. Then a messenger arrives. Mud-splattered, exhausted, half-starved. He's allowed only into the outer courtyard. You hear the steward questioning him in hushed tones. Later that evening, everyone gathers near the kitchen hearth, and whispers spread like spilled flour. The battle went badly. The Lord's nephew is dead. The king is furious. Revenge will be costly. More men will be called. You try to ignore it. You focus on your duties, scrubbing rush mats, tending the goats, boiling cloth. But there's a tension in the air. It's not just gossip. It's the vibration of change. Even a servant can feel it. One boy, the turnspit, decides he's had enough. 12 years old, all elbows and dirty hair. He runs away in the night. You hear about it the next morning when his master slaps two other boys in frustration. He is never found. The steward posts new rules the next day. Anyone caught sneaking food, wine, or letters out of the castle will be flogged. Anyone trying to flee will be branded and returned. No one questions it. But you start to wonder, what happens when fear replaces order? 3 weeks after the Lord's departure, the lady returns. No one expected it. Her entourage is smaller, somber, and silent. Her face is pale. Her lips tight. She says little, but her presence changes everything. Rooms must be aired, curtains replaced, meals prepared according to her strict diet. You are summoned to clean her chamber pot daily. She does not look at you, but she nods when the steward praises your work. It is the closest to praise you have ever received. She asks for prayers to be held in the chapel twice daily. You do not attend, of course. You are busy hauling laundry and chopping kindling. But you hear the bell, and sometimes, just after sunset, you pass the chapel and glimpse her inside, kneeling before the altar, unmoving. You later learn her son was killed in the same battle the Lord fought. Now you understand the silence. It is grief, and with grief comes danger. One afternoon, a commotion erupts. 2 scullery maids are dragged into the courtyard. The steward accuses them of stealing apples. They deny it. There is no trial, only raised voices. One is struck, the other branded. You watch from the shadows. It is a reminder. The castle, though quiet, is still a cage, and you are still at the bottom of it. But something changes after that. The other servants grow quieter, and also bolder. They speak less, but their eyes say more. They share rations when no one is watching. They help hide a boy too weak to work. A system of unspoken alliances begins to form. Not rebellion, not yet, but resistance. Subtle, patient, quiet as candle smoke. Then another visitor arrives. This one is different. A monk, wearing threadbare robes and walking barefoot. He is welcomed into the hall, offered bread and wine. He says little, but he lingers. Later, you hear the steward say that the monk has maps, that he's been to Calais, that he knows things about the battle, about the enemy, about plague rumors from the south. Plague. That word freezes the air like winter frost. You thought it was a legend, something from the cities. But now, you see the cook boiling everything twice, the laundry girl scrubbing with vinegar, the lady asking for her priest more often. And you begin to wonder, if plague does come, will the castle protect you? Or will it trap you? The castle is changing. It doesn't happen all at once, but slowly, like a leaking roof. A drip here, a stain there. Then one day, the beams sag, and the weight of rot becomes undeniable. You begin to notice the changes first in the routine. The steward no longer walks the halls with his usual zeal. His inventory scrolls remain tucked beneath his arm, but he seldom checks them. His eyes are shadowed, his steps hurried. Then the cook's helper, a girl barely 15, collapses near the hearth. At first, it's assumed she simply fainted. Overwork, hunger. She's taken to the infirmary, such as it is, a mattress near the stables. But by evening, her skin turns dark at the neck. She doesn't rise the next morning. Neither does the laundress who tended to her. The castle is no longer safe. You've smelled smoke, sewage, rot, and blood. But this is different. The air itself feels wrong. Stale, heavy, quiet. Whispers begin again, this time about rats, about boils, about the south of England falling into chaos. You've never seen a city, but the stories filter up from traveling monks and desperate traders. Entire villages wiped clean, clerics abandoning their flocks, graves dug before people die, just to save time. The steward calls a meeting. It's brief. All servants are to remain within the castle walls. No visitors allowed. Rations will be reduced. Wash your hands. Stay away from the sick. Simple orders. Impossible to follow. You share chambers, tools, bowls, water. You share everything, because that's what being a servant is. And so, when the stable boy coughs, everyone hears it. When the kitchen girl vomits, everyone smells it. When the head cook doesn't rise one morning, it is not surprising. Then, without ceremony, the lady leaves. Her carriage rolls out at dawn, without the usual entourage. Only 2 guards, 1 maid, and a priest ride with her. The steward watches from the gate, his knuckles white on the railing. She leaves no note, no orders, no promise of return. The steward says nothing for days. Then he disappears too. Just like that, the castle is lordless, ladyless, and leaderless. You and the remaining servants are alone. There are no wages, no masters, no food deliveries, no one left to obey. At first, the habits remain. Fires are kindled, floors are scrubbed, meals are cooked, fewer, simpler, thinner. But something shifts. People begin eating before asking. Beds go unmade, chamber pots unemptied. You try to hold on to routine. You still wake early, still clean what you can, but there's no structure now. And where structure vanishes, fear creeps in. More servants fall ill. One maid locks herself in a room and won't come out. Another disappears entirely. You find the pig boy outside the wall one morning, dead, eyes open. No one wants to touch him. He is buried with a stick and a prayer no one really believes. The castle, once a place of power, is now a prison of stone and sickness. You begin to dream of fields. Not grand ones, just simple ones. Turned soil, chickens, a river. You imagine your childhood home, the thatched roof, your mother's voice. You try to remember her face. It's hard. Faces blur. You were sold into this life young. Your parents were desperate. The steward offered coin and safety. But was it safety? Is a life of damp stone and silence truly safer than hunger in the open air? And what does it mean to survive if all you've known is servitude? One evening, you find yourself alone in the larder, a dried apple in your hand. You chew slowly. The walls feel closer than ever. The air, warmer, almost feverish. The fire has gone out, but no one bothers to relight it. There is a moment in that silence when you understand no one is coming back. Not the Lord, not the steward, not the priest, not the girl with the pretty laugh, not even the rats. You set the apple core down, walk to the outer gate. It's unguarded. You stand there for a long time, looking out at the trees, at the hills, at freedom, or death, maybe both. Then you step outside, and you don't look back. The story of servants in a medieval castle is not a tale of glory, war, or courtly intrigue. It is a story of labor, of quiet obedience, of lives spent in service, often without thanks, often without choice. But even here, among soot and sweat, there is human resilience. History rarely records the names of scullions or laundresses or turnspit boys, but they kept the hearths lit. They fed the nobles. They cleaned the filth. And when the lords fled, it was the servants who remained, at least for a while. One might ask, in the end, who truly held a castle? You are standing knee-deep in a stream, the water biting at your skin like icy teeth. It's dawn and the mist clings low over the fields. In your hands is a coarse woolen shift, stained with sweat, urine, and worse. You are scrubbing it with a brush made from bound twigs, soaked in ash lye and stale urine. Your job, your life, is washing the clothes of others. You are a laundress in Tudor England. Forget silks and brocades. Forget tapestries and feathered hats. The real weight of the Tudor world isn't carried in palaces, but in the bundles of soiled garments women like you haul down muddy roads to the river's edge, or, if you're lucky, to a wash-house heated by fire and filled with steam. Let's step into your shoes, cracked and damp as they are, and see what your world looks like. You carry everything with you. A tub, if you're lucky to own one, often borrowed, splintered, and cracked. Wooden paddles for pounding clothes. Ash lye, a caustic mix of water and wood ash. Urine, collected in earthen pots from neighbors or inns, used as a powerful cleanser and whitening agent. Brushes, made from hog bristles or bundle reeds. Buckets, for hauling water. There is no such thing as soap, not as you know it. The closest is soft soap made with animal fat and wood ash, if you're lucky enough to acquire it. The smells are ever present. Urine, mold, boiled cloth, and sometimes blood, but you do not complain. You can't. This work is all that stands between you and the poorhouse, or worse, the streets. It depends. You might work in a village, laundering for wealthy farmers, landowners, or clergy. Or perhaps in London, for merchants, clerks, even the lesser nobility. You are not a servant in the house. You are hired labor. That means no protection, no warm meals, and no roof unless you pay for it. Your clients expect precision. Their ruffs must be starched and pressed. Their shirts must be white, or appear to be. Their linens must smell of lavender or rosemary, not your hands or the riverbank. If you fail, you are not paid. Worse, you may be accused of theft if a kerchief goes missing. Some laundresses have been hanged for such crimes. All it takes is the wrong accusation, and a magistrate with little sympathy for a woman who smells like lye. Let's break it down. Clothes are soaked in a mixture of water, lye, and urine. They may sit overnight in a barrel or a stone vat to lift stains and break down oils. The smell is revolting, but it works. You haul them out heavy, dripping, and kneel to scrub. Sometimes in a stream, sometimes on stone slabs, pounding and scouring. Your hands ache. Your knees throb. You are wet from ankle to shoulder, even in January. If you have access to a cauldron, you boil the worst garments. Shirts with lice. Underthings soaked with blood. Boiling kills fleas and softens grime. But wood is expensive. Fire is dangerous. And boiling means hours standing over smoke. Back to the river, or another round of buckets. Rinse, wring, repeat. Clothes are hung on hedges, fences, or lines. If it rains, and it often does, your work is undone. You must start again. Starch is made from wheat flour, boiled and strained. You paint it onto collars and cuffs with a brush, then use a flat iron heated over fire to press the fabric. The iron is unwieldy and dangerous. Burns are common. Fire is a constant risk. This final touch is the difference between a respectable job and an insult to your patron. You are likely in your 30s, though your face looks older. Laundry work is backbreaking. It inflames your joints, cracks your skin, and damages your eyesight. You cannot afford gloves or shoes that fit. Your hands are always red. Your knuckles bleed. You cough from smoke. You cannot carry a child and still work, and many laundresses give up their babies to wet nurses. Or worse, infections fester in cuts. Skin diseases spread. There is no doctor, no rest. You work or you starve. You are not a housemaid. That means you are free. But it also means you pay for everything: lodging, food, fuel, water, tools. If a client does not pay you on time, you go into debt. If a winter storm prevents you from drying clothes, you lose your week's wage. Some women form launder circles, sharing tools and jobs. Others compete bitterly, fighting over clients and accusing each other of theft or sabotage. There is no union, only survival. And because you are a woman working alone, men assume things. Many believe laundresses are promiscuous, that a woman who handles other people's underclothes is loose with her own. It is dangerous. You're often harassed, sometimes worse. You cannot report it. The magistrates side with men of property. You learn to keep your head down, your mouth shut, a knife in your apron. You know things. You see blood on shifts. You see who bleeds between the thighs more often than they should. You wash out strange herbs from the hems of apothecary wives. You know who sleeps with whom, whose sheets carry 2 cents, not 1. You say nothing, but the knowledge is power. Some women trade secrets for protection, for coin, for kindness. Others write them down, if they can write. Most simply remember. And sometimes those secrets become stories, accusations, gossip in court, or even evidence in a trial. But you keep your head down. You wash, you scrub, you survive. By evening, your arms ache from lifting, your fingers are raw, and your back feels broken. You have 5 pence to your name. You will eat barley bread and cheese, if there is any. You will sleep in a shared bed or on straw. Tomorrow will be the same. But you are not helpless. You are a working woman. In a world that respects neither women nor work, that is no small feat. You look at your hands, blistered, swollen, red. You soak them in cool water. You say nothing. because there is no one to tell. But inside you wonder, what happens if you cannot work tomorrow? The next day begins the same as every other. Before sunrise, you're already at the river, sleeves rolled up, face tight with cold, feet stinging from icy mud. Your fingers are cracked from the day before, but there's no time to rest. Today's washing includes linens from the rector's home, and he is known to dock payment for so much as a loose thread. You dump the garments into a wooden barrel of stale urine you've been collecting for a week. Chamberlain, they call it, though no polite woman discusses it aloud. To you, it is a scent of work, of wages, of survival. But today, as you scrub and wring, something feels different. You are slower. Your arms, one strong from years of pounding wet cloth, ache more than usual. Your chest is tight. Your cough, the one you ignored for months, feels deeper now. And in the steam rising from the boil pot, you see the face of a fellow laundress you buried just last week. There is no such thing as health care for a woman like you. When laundresses fall ill, they are replaced. Quickly. Too many days away from your clients, and they hire someone else. Someone younger, cheaper, or simply closer to the city center. Your reputation fades. Your income dies before your body does. Coughs, cuts, infections, all common. But the real terror is consumption, what we now call tuberculosis. Or worse still, the sweating sickness, a tutor scourge that kills in hours. You've seen it before. A flush in the cheeks, a sudden fever, a collapse, then nothing. That fear lingers over every hot breath in the wash house. You do not speak of it. To name it is to summon it. Today, you're paid a full shilling by Mistress Harrow, a wealthy widow who insists on rose water in her rough linens. It's a rare kindness or oversight. You dare not question it. With that coin, you buy dried peas, 2 candles, and a new bundle of reeds to replace your worn-out scrubbing brush. That leaves you with 3 farthings. Enough, maybe, for a bit of cheese tomorrow. But another client, Master Rill, a grocer, refuses to pay. He claims his doublet was faded from over-scrubbing. You know that's a lie. The garment was already worn thin. But he is standing. You do not. You consider confronting him again. You think of demanding your 6pence. But you remember what happened to a washerwoman last autumn who did just that, accused of theft, whipped in public, and barred from market work. Her face still bears the scars. You walk away. With your health waning and your coin nearly gone, you contemplate the one path most laundresses dread, parish relief. The parish offers aid to the truly destitute, a loaf of bread, a small coin, sometimes firewood in winter. But there is a price. You must submit to questioning, to inspection. You must show your work records, your debts, your shame. And worse, you may be assigned a workhouse. There, you do laundry still, but under lock and key. The conditions are harsher, the food worse. Your autonomy gone. You become, essentially, a servant of the state. The women there emerge thinner, older, colder. You tell yourself you're not there yet. But you've seen that road, and it's not far. Despite the competition, there is sisterhood among some laundresses. Not all, but a few. One, old Marjorie, has been in the trade since King Henry's days. She teaches you how to use boiled nettles to ease your cough. Another, Ada, shares a secret spot near the apothecary's back wall where cast-off herbs are dumped, if you're quick enough to gather them before the rats. Together, you sometimes share supper. A split onion, a half-stale crust, bits of dried eel. You talk of men, mostly in complaint, of clients who cheat, of other laundresses, always someone who's risen above you or fallen further down. You do not talk about dreams, because there is no room for dreams here, only survival. One day, unexpectedly, a royal processional passes through the city. Nobles in bright silks and plumes parade past, their garments dazzling in the pale sun. You stare, rag in hand, apron damp, soap splatter across your bodice. You think, someone like me washes those clothes, too. And for a moment, you realize the absurdity. That the power of kings, their pomp, their performance, rests on invisible women bent over wash tubs, boiling linen and urine, scrubbing the smell of bodies out of gowns they'll never touch. You wonder if that noble woman in the carriage ever thinks of you. You know the answer. Later that evening, a quiet knock at your lodging door. A small girl, no older than 10, clutching a bundled smock. She says she's come on behalf of the brewer's wife. A new client. You accept the garment. It's heavier than expected. And when you unfold it, you see the stain. Blood. Not from injury, but from childbirth. You nod. Say nothing. Begin soaking the fabric. You've done this before. Wash the evidence of unwanted pregnancies, of backroom abortions, of shameful unions, of quiet violations. Laundresses, you see, are the keepers of secrets no one wants recorded. As you kneel beside the tub, scrubbing the soaked linen in near darkness, you think, what happens to all the stories we clean away? Weeks have passed. The sun is weaker now. Autumn has turned the roads to muck, and the riverbank is nothing more than a pit of brown ice-rimmed sludge. You still work, still wake before dawn, still scrub, boil, and wring. But your cough has worsened. You don't speak of it. Not to your clients, not to other laundresses, not even to the apothecary's assistant who sells you a pinch of dried mint for your throat. Illness is not something you admit, not unless you're ready to be replaced. And you are not ready, because for all its toil, all its stink, all its tedium, this work is yours. You have made something of yourself in a world that gives women like you very little. You do not want to fade away. But even so, you can feel the edges of your life fraying. One morning, there's a new girl by the water. She's young, maybe 13. Fresh-faced, pale hands. The kind of hands that have not yet wrung linen until the skin split. She's struggling with a pair of breeches. Doesn't know how to scrub them properly. You watch for a while. She glances at you, nervously. You consider saying nothing. But you don't. You step over, take the garment, and show her how to fold it, where to strike it against the paddle, how to move the brush in a circular motion to lift the grease. You teach her how to rinse without wasting water, how to balance the garment weight across both shoulders, so it doesn't ruin her back before she's 20. She says thank you. You nod wordless, because this, too, is part of the work, passing on what little you know, even if no one ever wrote it down. There was a time, long ago, when you thought you'd do something else. Not become wealthy, no. That was never an option. But perhaps a midwife. Or a cook. Maybe even marry a cobbler or a cooper and work beside him. But those things require luck. A father who isn't injured in a cart accident. A brother who doesn't gamble away the dowry. A husband who stays. You had none of those. And so you became a laundress. You didn't choose this path. Not really. But you've walked it for so long now. It feels like it chose you. And the truth is, there's something satisfying in the rhythm of it, in the feel of sun-warmed linen, in the smell of dried lavender tucked in a fold, in the rare moment when a client thanks you, even briefly, for making their world a little cleaner, even if your own world remains dirty. Old Marjorie dies in late October. No one is surprised. She was over 60, ancient by your world standards. She died in her sleep, in a bed she paid for herself, in a room that had a real window, that, in your circle, is considered a good death. You and 3 others walk with her body to the churchyard. There is no priest to spare, just a gravedigger who remembers her name. You say a prayer. It's clumsy but heartfelt. You carry her wooden washtub as a token. It will be passed on to someone else. Nothing is wasted in your world. Not soap, not food, not even grief. In November, something strange happens. A client, the brewer's wife, hands you a sealed letter. She says it's from her cousin in London, who is looking for a reliable laundress in her household, a noble household, with servants, a real wash house, firewood, payment in coin and food, a place at court. You stand there, letter in hand, unsure what to do. It could be everything, or it could be a trap. You've heard of noble houses where laundresses are treated no better than animals, where punishment is swift, where one wrong stain leads to exile, or worse. You would lose your independence, but gain safety, perhaps warmth, maybe even an apprenticeship for the girl you've been teaching. Is it worth it? Can you walk away from a life you've survived, a life you've shaped, to enter a world that doesn't know your name? You sit with a letter for 3 days before deciding. No one tells you what to do. Not anymore. Whatever your choice, one truth remains. The history of Tudor England is not only written in the lives of kings and queens. It is soaked into the linens at laundresses like you wash by hand, dried in cold wind, folded with cracked fingers, and returned without ceremony. The white ruffs worn in court portraits? Yours. The sheets that lined a noblewoman's birthing bed? Yours. The bloody garments of men who returned from battle? Yours. You are not in the history books, but your work is in every thread. And though you do not leave a mark in ink, you leave it in lie. You leave it in every garment that left your hands cleaner than it came. The laundress is a ghost in the fabric of history, ever present, rarely seen. But without her, the gears of society grind slower. The illusion of order fades. The image of purity collapses. In your silence, you carried shame, secrets, blood, sweat, and power. You did it without ceremony, without pay worth the name, without comfort, but you did it. And so, when we think of history, let us remember not only the kings and battles, but the women with blister hands, hunched over washtubs, making the world cleaner, one stained garment at a time. Because if we forget them, who will remember the stories they washed away? The cobblestones are slick with morning dew. The alleys, still quiet, carry the smell of rot and damp straw. Somewhere behind a butcher's stall, a rat squeals, followed by a soft snap. You step from the shadows with your sack in hand, eyes darting, stick raised. You are a rat catcher in medieval Europe, and the city is your hunting ground. You are neither respected nor liked, but you are necessary. You walk where others dare not, through refuse heaps, under floorboards, inside latrines, along plague pit edges. You face the creatures that no one wishes to see, yet everyone fears, not just because of the bites, but because of what comes with them. It is the mid-14th century. The Black Death has come and gone, and come again. The towns whisper of it still. Swollen necks, blackened skin, sudden death. A curse, they say, a punishment. Few understand the cause. Fewer still suspect the rat. You don't understand it either. You're not a scholar. You can't read, but you've seen the patterns. When rats run through the granaries, people get sick. When the fleas bite deep, fever follows. When the nests bloom beneath thatch and floorboards, death is never far behind. You are paid meagerly to stop it, but not because the lords care about disease. They care about appearances, about food stocks, about merchant goods going unsullied, about servants too afraid to sleep indoors. No one wants rats, but no one wants a rat catcher at dinner either. You are armed with a staff or club, notched and worn from thousands of strikes, a net stitched together from discarded rope and sackcloth, a sack, always moving slightly, the fabric twitching with your morning's catch, traps, if you're lucky, crude wood and metal mechanisms baited with cheese, bread, or the bones of last week's victims, dogs or ferrets, trained to chase vermin into corners. These animals are better fed than you are. You also carry scars. One on your leg from a desperate rat that bit through your boot. Another on your hand from a jealous rival who didn't appreciate you working his territory. There are no licenses, no guild, no rules, only rats, and the humans who want them gone. You know places no one else does. You crawl under bakeries, through wine cellars, into middens and sewer tunnels. You feel the air shift before a tunnel collapses. You know which rats will run and which will fight. You recognize the rustling in the walls. Not just the rats, but the grain beetles, the weevils, the squeal of a rat king, a rare and horrifying tangle of rats knotted by tails and filth. You've seen children dragged from their homes with black sores. You've seen corpses buried in haste. You've seen rats eat the face of a man who died alone, undiscovered for days. You do not flinch anymore, but you do not sleep easily, because you know, in your bones, that the rats always come back. You are paid by volume, not by risk. Some days, a merchant might offer a copper penny for every rat you bring him, so long as they're already dead. Others want the tales as proof. One innkeeper near the city gates gives you soup in exchange for cleaning his cellars. It is never enough. You live in a lean-to behind the tannery. You share it with your dog and a dozen traps. The smell clings to your skin. The stink of blood, fear, wet fur, and sweat. No amount of river water can wash it off. People cross the street to avoid you, not just because you look poor, but because they know what your presence means. If a rat catcher is nearby, the rats are worse than anyone thought. You are not the only one. The city has others, some younger, hungrier, faster, some cruel. You've heard stories of catchers who breed rats just to raise their counts. Others who salt a cellar with dead rats, then offer to clean for a fee. You don't do that. Not yet, but the thought lingers. Because when winter comes, the rats dig deeper. And so must you. One evening, just before dusk, a man in a long black robe stops you near the market square. His hands are ink-stained. He wears a chain of office, not nobility, but wealth. "You've worked near the bishop's granary, yes?" he asks. You nod. He offers 2 silver coins, more than you've earned in a month, to follow him to a cellar beneath the cathedral. There you find not just rats, but bones, a collapsed tomb, the remains of something disturbed. He says it must be quiet, that the rats are not the concern, that he seeks what they uncovered. You don't ask questions. You take the coins. You gather your dog. You begin the work. But something feels wrong. The rats are acting strangely. Too bold. Too many. Too fast. You set traps and bait. You wait in silence. And in the dark, you wonder, what did they dig up beneath the bones? The cathedral cellar is colder than you expect. You light a lantern and crouch low, ducking under the archway. Stone walls, slick with moisture, form a narrow corridor that bends toward an old ossuary, a chamber once meant to hold the bones of monks and priests long since returned to dust. Your dog whines. You hush him. The robe man, the clerk or alchemist, or whatever he is, waits at the entrance, refusing to go further. He clasps his chain with both hands, muttering Latin under his breath. Not a prayer, exactly, more like an incantation. It does not comfort you. You descend into the dark, the flame flickering in your iron lamp. The steps are uneven. You've learned how to walk without sound. Rats know vibrations better than sight. And down here, you can feel hundreds of eyes watching you. The ossuary is cracked open. A wall has collapsed, not recently, but enough that something dug through it. The bones have been scattered, chewed on, moved. You find skulls lined up in a neat little row. That's not the work of rats. Still, the rodents are here. You hear them skittering, not away, but toward you. This isn't normal. Rats run from humans. They know their place. But these rats, they watch you, perched on ledges. Nose is twitching. Unafraid, you drop your first trap, baited with fish guts. Then another. The silence is deafening. Then a snap. The first trap hits. A rat flails. Then another. Your dog lunges, barking once, snatching 2 in his jaws. You grab a net, strike with your club. In the flurry, a rat climbs your leg, bites hard through your boot. You slam it against the wall. The sack rides. You've caught nearly a dozen. And still, the feeling grows. You return to the clerk. He counts the rats, eyes wide, not in disgust, but interest. He pays you the agreed sum. And then he asks for something else. "I need their tails," he says. You blink. Tails. Each one, severed carefully. Burn the rest. You hesitate. "Why?" He doesn't answer. Just walks away, muttering to himself. You keep the silver, but not the comfort. The next week, you begin hearing rumors again. Whispers in the taverns, near the baker's cart by the well. A merchant's daughter, feverish. A tailor's apprentice, dead in his sleep. A midwife, vanished. No one says the word aloud, but you all think it. Plague. You check your skin daily now. Look for the signs. The swellings. The bruises. The blackened fingers. You aren't sick. Not yet, but the rats are moving more. You meet other rat catchers at the back of the tanner's yard. 5 of them, all filthy, all hungry. One is missing 3 fingers. Another smells of rot. They don't speak much, only trade news. One claims the mill is overrun. Another says someone's releasing rats into taverns to drive up business. A third, a woman named Aldra, who once trapped vermin for the abbey, says she saw something strange. A priest burying dead rats behind the church, wrapped in linen. She says he sang over them like they were men. No one laughs. Instead, they begin sharpening their clubs. Because if plague returns, business rises. But so does the danger. You find a man slumped near the cooper's shop. Not a drunk, a messenger. His satchel open, his skin pale. He's cold, but not yet stiff. You check for coins. None. But inside his satchel, a scroll, sealed in wax with a strange sigil. A crowned rat. You do not break it. You leave it with the guard at the city gate and walk away. Fast. Because sometimes being a rat catcher means knowing what to ignore. As the weeks pass, the rats become more erratic. They bite infants. They chew holes in grain sacks. One even attacks a priest mid-sermon. You are called to places you were once barred from: guild halls, dining rooms, bedchambers. Your sack is never empty now. You should be grateful. But you're not, because this isn't natural. Rats don't behave this way unless something is wrong, deeply wrong. And in the quiet of your hovel, lantern flickering, dog asleep at your feet, sack twitching with a day's catch, you ask yourself, are the rats running from something or toward it? The city is sick. You feel before you see it. In the way shopkeepers pack their carts earlier each day. In the silence outside taverns where music once flowed. In the tension in every handshake, every coin exchange, every side glance toward a cough. You hear the word whispered now, plague. You've known it would return. You just didn't know it would wear a crown. The cathedral clerk returns. He finds you in the grain quarter, elbow deep in a wine merchant's basement trap. He pays you triple your usual fee, no negotiation, and asks you to follow him again. This time, he brings others. Not monks, not clergy, scholars, perhaps, or alchemists. They speak in a language you don't understand. They carry scrolls. One holds a flask of something thick and dark. Another keeps a rat on a chain, still alive, with a shaved patch on its back. They lead you deeper into the ossuary tunnels, past where you went before, into a space carved by no builder you've ever known. The stones are wrong, the angle's off, as if the passage was dug in haste or not by human hands at all. They stop at a hole in the floor, a well, but dry. They throw in a lantern. It disappears into blackness. This is where they're coming from. The clerk says, you peer in. You see movement, not just rats. Something else. The clerk tells you a story of a plague that predates even the Black Death, of a city in the east that sank beneath its own filth, of vermin drawn to something ancient, something hidden beneath stone and bone. He speaks of burial chambers filled not with the dead, but with feeding grounds. You think he's mad, but the rats agree with him, because their numbers have tripled in a fortnight. Their boldness is unnatural. You find them biting through boots, chewing the cords of bells. One night, a newborn disappears from a cradle. No one speaks of it, but everyone locks their doors at night now. You are awoken by a sound, a low, thunderous groan, stone against stone. The southern wall of the ossuary has collapsed. You're called to inspect it. You arrive to find a scene of panic, not from people, but from the rats. Hundreds, thousands, swarming outward, fleeing not from you, but through you. They pour over walls, climb doors, trample each other. Your dog barks furiously, then runs. You don't follow. You freeze, and from the darkness of the collapsed catacomb, you see something else. A shape, not a rat, not a man, something in between. And then silence. You return to your hut, board up the windows. The dog doesn't come back. Over the next week, you hear of other catchers found dead, some in their beds, some torn open, one burned alive in his own lean-to, rats still chewing at the corpse. The city begins to break down. Trade stalls shutter. Bread prices rise. A priest blames witches. A lord blames foreigners. The clerk nowhere to be found. You do not work. There is no point. The rats are no longer the enemy. They are the symptom. Then, late one evening, there's a knock at your door. A child stands there barefoot, eyes red-rimmed. "Mr. Rat Man," she whispers. "It's in the well." You follow her, not because you're brave, but because you know no one else will. At the edge of the city, past the tanneries, lies an old well. It's dried up now, covered in weeds. The girl points, then vanishes into the mist. You approach. The well is deep, black, silent, but on the rim, scratched into stone by claws or blades, you see a crude symbol, a rat wearing a crown. The next morning, you return to the cathedral one last time. You leave behind your traps, your net, your club. You carry only fire, because some infestations cannot be caught. They must be burned. You drop the torch into the ossuary tunnel, now bloated with nests, bones, and things that move with too many legs. The flames rise. Screams follow, not human. You do not wait. You walk. You do not look back. The rat catcher was never honored, never recorded, never remembered by name. Yet they fought a war, not against rats, but against the darkness they carried. In the forgotten corners of medieval cities, these men and women battled disease, poverty, and the creeping sense that something far older and more dangerous than pestilence might lie beneath civilization's foundations. They lived in shadows, worked in filth, died in silence. But without them, the cities would have collapsed long before the plague ever arrived. They didn't wear crowns, but they deserved one, if only for surviving the crawl. It's just after 4 a.m., and London is still asleep. Except you. You're already awake, shivering in your patched coat, pulling rough burlap over your shoulders, waiting in line at the coal yard along the Thames. You're a coal hauler, also called a coal whipper, coal heaver, or coal carrier, depending on the size of your load and the stretch of dock you work. You are not a miner. You are the next link in the chain. You take coal from the boats to the wagons, from the wagons to the homes, from the cellars to the grates. You are the invisible engine of the industrial age, and everything you touch turns black. By the mid-1800s, London runs on coal. It heats every room, powers every steam engine, cooks every meal. The city consumes millions of tons a year, much of it shipped downriver from Newcastle and South Wales. Massive barges crowd the Thames, black with sacks. Behind the empire's grand power looms a simple truth. Without men like you to move it, none of it burns. But the city rarely sees you. You work in the margins, in alleys under carts, in cellars, down riverbanks, and behind taverns. You do not wear a uniform. You do not carry a nameplate. Only soot. The first sound you hear isn't the whistle of a factory. It's the groan of the barge ropes being drawn taut along the dock. Then the shouts begin. "Heavers! Move!" You scramble down the gangplank, sack over shoulder, and begin. Each load weighs 1 to 200 weight, up to 112 pounds. You carry it on your back, chest bent, neck braced. No harness, no padding, just burlap, bone, and resolve. The men around you move in a rhythm. Lift, haul, tip, return. Lift, haul, tip, return. You may make 100 trips a day. You are paid by the ton, not the hour. If your limbs fail, your stomach doesn't eat. Coal, dust gets into everything. Your clothes, your hair, your lungs. You cough up black phlegm each morning. A mixture of tar, soot, and river damp. Your hands are cracked. Your knuckles never fully straighten. The grit wears down your nails. Your teeth, if you have them, are always tinged gray. You blow your nose and it's black. No matter how much you wash, and water is scarce, you can never scrub the coal from under your skin. It coats the floorboards of every slum you live in. It lingers on your children's blankets. It even follows you to the grave. Every yard has its characters. In yours, it's Hooky Tom, a veteran hauler who lost 3 fingers on his right hand in a cart accident. Still works. Still faster than most. Hooky has a saying, "A day without coal is a day without coins." He laughs when he says it, but there's no joy behind it, only exhaustion. He's been hauling since he was 9. Sleeps in a room with 7 others. Eats bread fried and dripping. Drinks gin when he can afford it. Salt water when he can't. Once, he tried to join the Navy to escape the coal yards. They told him he was too short. So he came back and kept hauling. You think often about Hooky, not because you admire him, but because you see your future in him. In the afternoon, your shift moves from the docks to delivery runs. You carry sacks up to the drawing rooms of the rich, up 5 flights of stairs, across polished tile, through gilded doors. You're told to remove your boots. You don't. You can't. They're soaked through and fused to your feet with grime and skin. You drop the sack near the fireplace. The lady of the house winces. She waves you out with a gloved hand. You are paid at the door. Sometimes a penny, sometimes not at all. A few pretend they already paid. You have no proof, no voice. You nod, turn, and walk away. Another house, another trip, another face that doesn't look at yours. At day's end, you sit on the edge of a brick wall near the public pump. You take a swig of cloudy water. Eat a cold heel of bread. Your back throbs. Your wrists twitch. Your boots are soaked from standing in puddles of ash, horse dung, and spilled beer. You try to talk with another hauler. He doesn't answer. He's asleep, sitting upright, sack still on his lap. You don't wake him, because you know that's the closest to peace you'll get tonight. The city is growing. Every day, more bricks, more smoke, more need for heat. And behind every roaring hearth is a man like you, bent, coughing, walking 100 miles in 1 block. No one cheers you. No one thanks you. But still, you carry the load. Because if you don't, who will? And as you close your eyes, head against the cold brick, your body still vibrating from the day's labor, one thought lingers. What happens when you can no longer carry it? Morning again. Your body protests before your eyes open. Joints stiff. Knees swollen. You've slept, but barely. Rest comes hard when your lungs rattle like a kettle on the boil. You cough, black again. Always black. The bunkhouse is quiet. Too quiet. Hooky Tom didn't return last night. You don't ask where he is. Because in this line of work, silence is the usual obituary. You report to the coal yard just after dawn. The yard master stands beside his clipboard, or what passes for one. A battered sheet of wood, names etched in chalk, numbers in grease. He doesn't look up as he speaks. 2 barges today. Then North Bank. Cart to Bishopsgate. Street load-ins late. No overtime. He marks your name, but says nothing when you cough. You hear the same cough from 2 other men. No one talks about it. You all know what it means. But a man who can't haul doesn't get paid. And a man who doesn't get paid doesn't eat. And so you keep going. Your delivery today includes a townhouse just off Kensington Gardens. 3 stories, all polished marble and polished servants. The lady of the house has a coal cellar at the rear, not the front, which means you walk the full length of the alley, carrying 110 pounds each trip. The butler opens the gate and immediately sneers. Mind the rug, and don't use the servant's entrance. You are the servant of servants. Beneath notice. You dump the coal into the chute, careful not to spill. The chute is narrow. You skin your knuckles again. 3rd time this week. You say nothing. Later, you see the same butler pour brandy into a glass worth more than your week's pay. You wonder what the brandy smells like. Then you go back for another load. Not all haulers are like you. Some are tied to gangs, men who control routes, who take a cut from your pay to protect your job. You've seen them rough up an old hauler just for speaking to the wrong client. You've seen them sell sacks twice, once full of coal, once refilled with ash. The yard master knows. Doesn't care. You've kept clean so far. But winter's coming, and with the frost, work dries up. Clients delay deliveries. Carts freeze. Coal gets wet, and a wet sack is heavier than a dry one, sometimes by 20 pounds. You're already falling behind on rent. The bunkhouse wants its shillings. You can't afford your daily bread. You can't afford your conscience either. So the next time a gang member offers you a bonus sack job, you consider it, just for a moment, because your ribs show through your shirt. And the city doesn't wait for the honest to catch up. You finally visit the apothecary. He doesn't look up as you speak, just listens while grinding herbs with a stone. You describe the cough, the pain, the way it's harder to breathe at the bottom of the coal barge, the way you wake up dizzy. He nods. Coal worker's lung. Nothing to be done. I can give you laudanum for sleep. That's all. You have no money. He waves you off. First bottle's free. Next one won't be. You take it. Because sleep, even false sleep, is something. You see them sometimes. Boys, 8, 10, covered in soot, clothes hanging from their bones. They carry half sacks, follow older haulers like shadows. They run errands for pennies. Some get pulled into full work before their voices even crack. One drops a sack. The coal splits on the stones. The yard master strikes him with the butt of his cane. Hard. No one intervenes. You don't either. You just keep moving. Because you've seen what happens when you become visible. One day, a stranger appears near the barge docks. A clean man, hat, coat, polished boots. He carries a notebook and speaks with a clipped accent. He says he's writing about the working conditions of London's laborers. He watches you work, then asks, "Do you feel proud? Helping fuel the greatest empire in the world." You look at your hands, splintered, blackened, burned. You think about Hooky Tom, about the laudanum, about the coughing boy who sleeps behind the forge. And then you say, "Ask me again when I'm dead." He writes it down. You never see the article. At night, you lie in the bunkhouse, chest burning. Not from heat, from inside. The laudanum is nearly gone. It helps, barely. Your breath whistles. You wonder how many sacks you've carried in your life. Hundreds? Thousands? You wonder if they remember your name at the last house you delivered to. They probably don't. You wonder if you'll be remembered at all. And then the thought comes, if all the haulers disappeared, today, would the city even notice? The frost has come. It clings to gutters, horse hooves, and the iron rails that line the river's edge. Ice crusts over barges. Smoke from 1,000 chimneys paints the air thick and gray. You pull your coat tighter, but it's no use. Your bones feel cold in the river. And still, the coal must move. Winter is when the city's hearts burn hottest, and when the haulers suffer most. You rise in the dark, as always, but your legs hesitate. There's a deep ache in your left side, not muscle, but deeper, a tightness in your chest that doesn't loosen, even after your first mile of walking. You cough not phlegm now, but blood. You wipe it on your sleeve. Say nothing, because in the bunkhouse, pain is not news. Only absence is. Hooky Tom still hasn't returned. No one speaks of him anymore. You suspect he's in the pauper's graveyard across the bridge, buried without a name. Just another coal-stained body in a city too large to care. The day's shift takes you to Clerkenwell, to a house where the maid refuses to let you through the service entrance. Instead, you're made to carry the sacks around back, up a slippery stair, into a coal scuttle that hasn't been emptied in weeks. You trip on the 5th run, land hard on your side. The sack bursts open. Coal scatters. The butler watches, says nothing. You clean it, not for pride, not for coin, but because it's all you have. That evening, back at the yard, someone lights a small barrel fire. It's not allowed, but the yard master is gone. The flame flickers orange against blackened faces. For a moment, there's warmth, laughter, even. Someone passes a bottle. Another tells a story about the time he got invited into a client's parlor and was offered warm soup. Just once, he says. They all nod like it's a fairy tale. You sip. It burns your throat. Someone coughs, deep hacking. No one flinches. The fire pops, then dies. The next morning, your body fails you. It happens between barge and cart. Mid-stride, mid-load, your knees buckle. You drop, the sack lands hard. Your head hits the cobblestone. Everything blurs. Someone shouts. Someone else laughs. You see boots step around you. Then nothing. You wake in the parish infirmary. White walls. Rough sheets. A single candle guttering on the sill. A nurse speaks softly. says you've overworked, says your lungs are too far gone, says you should not return to labor. But there is no pension, no plan, no one coming to carry your burdens now that you can't carry sacks. Your shift is over. Your body is broken. You are still alive, but barely. A visitor comes, a boy from the yard. He leaves a folded letter on your bedside. You can't read, but you recognize the seal. A press of soot, a coal smudge. Inside are coins, 5 shillings. Enough for food, maybe rent for a week. No name, no note. You understand. It's from the others, from the men still hauling, still lifting, still burning. When you're finally discharged weeks later, your strength is half of what it was. You try to return to the yard. The new yard master doesn't recognize your face. Too old, he says. Too sick. You don't argue. You just walk away. London never stops burning. Its chimneys still smoke. Its carriages still roll. Its parlors still glow with warmth you never felt. The city forgets. But behind every fire was a man with blistered hands and a spine bent by labor. They carried the empire in sacks soaked with snow and sweat. They coughed up blood in silence. They built the warmth others lived in. And when they disappeared, the world didn't notice. But they were there. They were always there. The day begins not with the sun, but with the stench. Even before the light filters through the city's stone alleys, the smell of human waste rises through the grates. Acrid, thick, tangible. The Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer of Rome, groans beneath the city like a slow-moving serpent. And you serve it. You are a latrine worker, a cleaner, a maintainer, a sewerman, a man who spends his days scraping, scouring, and surviving beneath the marble grandeur of the eternal city. You live in a Rome of gods and monuments, emperors and triumphs. But your world is dark, wet, and very much alive. Above ground, Rome is dazzling. Bathhouses shimmer with steam. Aqueducts feed clean water across the city. Public fountains sparkle. Senators strut in white togas. Citizens gather in public squares to debate politics and watch gladiators bleed. But every one of them, rich or poor, citizen or slave, eats, drinks, and defecates. And what goes and must come out. Enter you. Your job is to keep the latrines working, not just for comfort, for public health. Because when the waste backs up, so does the disease. Rome's sanitation system is centuries ahead of its time. There are hundreds of public latrines, especially near markets, bathhouses, and taverns. Large stone benches with holes spaced for sitting. Beneath each bench, a channel of flowing water. At your feet, a sponge on a stick, dipped in vinegar, the tersorium, used instead of toilet paper. Yes, shared. Yes, reused. And yes, you clean them. The waste flows into the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's massive underground drainage system. It's a marvel of engineering and a magnet for rot. You enter through a maintenance hole near the Tiber, shoulders hunched, torch in hand. Rats scatter. The air is thick with ammonia, mold, and old death. This is your domain. Your toolkit includes a long-handled rake to dislodge clogs of waste and debris, buckets for scooping sludge when the water flow weakens, oil-soaked cloth tied around your mouth, your only mask, a scraping paddle for the dried layers inside stone pipes, a hook pole used to drag out everything from dead animals to lost sandals. No gloves, no boots, only thick calluses and the tolerance built from years of filth. You work barefoot, not by choice but necessity. Wet sandals rot. Feet must learn to feel their way, even in the dark. It's not just the smell. The sewers are dangerous. Methane gas ignites torches with sudden, deadly flare-ups. The walls collapse. Cracks form. Water bursts through, dragging you with it. The rats are large. Some attack. Poisonous snakes find warmth near waste runoff. And worst of all, toilet demons. Yes, demons. Romans believe spirits live in the latrines. Tiny gods of waste and mischief. Cacodemoniae. Some whisper they steal souls through the latrine holes at night. You don't believe in spirits, but you've heard screams echoing through the tunnels. Screams from men trapped, or worse, left behind. You've heard water flowing where it shouldn't. Air hissing when no one breathes. So you keep a small charm, a clay figurine, in your tunic, just in case. Each latrine includes a channel for rinsing the communal sponges, but these channels clog. Foul water stagnates. Mold grows. You clean these too. You reach in, arm deep, dislodging slime. You lift out wood cloth, even coins, dropped by unlucky users. You rinse the sponges in vinegar. Wring them out. Replace them on the bench. No one thanks you. You are invisible. The latrine sees all. Patricians with silk togas. Merchants with rings on their fingers. Soldiers with broken sandals. Prostitutes. Slaves. Beggars. All use the same stone bench. Some nod at you. Most avoid your gaze. A few spit. But they all use the toilet. And when they walk away, they forget the waste behind. You do not. You stay. You clean. You carry the empire's filth so others may walk cleanly. There's a stretch beneath the Forum Romanum where the Cloaca Maxima forks. Most workers avoid it. It's old, cracked, twisted. The walls whisper with the wind of ancient pipes. But one day you're sent there. A clog is causing backups near the Temple of Vesta. You descend with two others. The torch flickers blue. You feel something shift beneath your feet. And then you see it. Something buried in the silt. A statue. Not marble, but bone. A figure of a man with rat's teeth. You stare. Say nothing. Take your hook. And as you scrape, the walls tremble. Not much. Just enough. What happens when the waste refuses to stay buried? You're not sure how long you stare at that statue. The torch hiss in your hand, casting flickering light on the thing half submerged in black muck. The carved bone looked ancient, worn smooth by years of flowing filth. But it was clear, a man's body, a rodent skull, open-mouthed and full of teeth. You'd heard of Laura's household spirits, of Cloacina, goddess of the sewer, of Tudolina, the guardian of stored grain. But this wasn't from the temples. This was older. You said nothing to the other workers. You wrapped the bone idol in your tunic and stuffed it into a clay jar at home. It sat on your shelf now, between a cracked cup and a mummified rat, one you kept out of superstition, though you never admitted why. Since that day, the air beneath the latrines has felt different, heavier. The tunnels sweat more. Rats appear bolder. The tersorium sponges rot faster, no matter how much vinegar you soak them in. Even your oilcloth mask can't keep the stink out. At night, when you lie in your cot, you dream of grates that breathe, of drain pipes that speak, of toilet holes that blink. You're called next to the Stabian baths, the most popular public bath in your quarter. Their latrines have backed up again. The balneator, a wiry man with a glass eye and a whispering voice, leads you in through the back. The baths are closed. The steam is gone. The water has gone slick. They say the drain moaned, he mutters, and that it breathed heat. You nod politely. You've heard worse. You crawl under the latrine trench and begin scraping. Something thick, gelatinous, clings to the pipe walls. Not just waste. Slime, like the trail of a massive slug. It pulses when touched. You stop. You consider reporting it to the city engineer. You even draft the words in your mind. But you know how that would go. You are a latrine worker. No one listens to men who smell like sewers. There's a shrine to Cloacina, goddess of the sewer system, in the Roman Forum. It's a small, circular monument, easy to miss among the grandeur of arches and basilicas. You visit it one evening after your shift. Not to pray, just to look. Someone left an offering, a wreath of laurel and rosemary. Another has scrawled a plea into the marble with a nail. Protect us from the river within. You don't know what it means, but you feel it. There's a river in the sewers that doesn't flow like the rest. It waits. They gave you a helper last week. A boy, maybe 13, newly assigned from the slave barracks. He doesn't speak much. Smart eyes, though. Quick hands. You show him how to clean the sponge channels, how to scrape beneath the latrine holes without getting splashed, how to sniff for methane. He learns fast, but he asks questions. Too many. What's down the old tunnel near the Palatine Hill? Is it true the pipes under the Colosseum lead to a pit that never drains? Do the senators have different waste? You try not to answer, but he's the first person who's ever looked at you with anything like curiosity or respect. So you tell him bits and pieces about how Rome is two cities, one above, all marble and politics, and one below, all waste and silence. He says he'd rather be down here. You tell him, no, he wouldn't. 3 nights ago, during the third watch, the Tiber overflowed, the Cloaca Maxima swelled, the tunnels flooded. You were in one of them. You barely made it out. Since then, the flow has changed. The water is warmer than it should be. The rats don't run anymore. They watch. One even followed you home. It sat on your windowsill and stared through the wooden slats. You threw a stone. It didn't flinch, just blinked. This morning, you're called to a wealthy domus on the Esquiline Hill. The owner is away, traveling to Spania. His staff called in a backup cleaner, and the latrine has gone untouched for days. You descend into the private system, smaller than the Cloaca Maxima, but older, and you smell it immediately. Not waste, not mold, sulfur, like the hot springs nearby, where the gods are said to whisper through steam. You push forward. The stone beneath your feet trembles. The air grows thick. You raise your torch. You see a tunnel that doesn't appear on any map. Straight, smooth, black. Something glistens at the end. You should leave. You should report it. You should forget. But you don't. You take one step forward, and the walls breathe. What happens when the veins beneath the empire begin to awaken? You've walked tunnel for years. Some twist, some loop, some end in collapse. But this one, the one you found under the Esquiline Hill, is wrong. It goes straight, unbroken, wide enough for 2 carts, but with no wheel ruts, no lantern hooks, no tool marks, as if the earth split open and the stone grew around it. You step into it. The warmth is unnatural. The air is wet, but doesn't stink. The walls breathe, just barely, just enough. Your torch sputters. The flame flattens. You are not alone. 50 paces in, the tunnel ends. Not in a wall. In a door. Not wood. Not marble. Not bronze. Something older. Darker. Stone smooth like glass. Carved with concentric rings, worn down, but still visible. You brush off the soot. In the center, a rat crowned, devouring its own tail. You've seen that image once before, on the sewer idol you found weeks ago. The bone figurine you hid under your bed. The one that now whispers in your sleep. You should turn back. You know this, but something compels you. A vibration in the soles of your feet. A pressure in your chest. Like the empire itself is holding its breath, and you are inside its lungs. You return that night, alone, with oil and rope. You bring your apprentice, against your better judgment. He begs you to. You both descend again. This time, with silence in your mouths and fear in your bones. The tunnel is unchanged, the door untouched, but something waits behind it. You push. It opens without sound. What lies beyond is not a room. Not a vault, a chamber, circular, smooth, lined with alcoves. Inside each alcove, bundles, wrapped in cloth, heavy with age. You pull one open. Bones, dozens, children, but not all human, some with rat-like skulls, elongated teeth, twisted vertebrae. Your apprentice backs away. He vomits. You stand, numb, on the floor, in a ring around the center. Carved in the stone. All waste must return. The next day, you hear rumors. A senator's daughter found foaming at the mouth in a latrine. A baker's family vanishing overnight. Their house filled with chewed rags and gnawed sandals. A worker from your own crew found dead, drowned in a dry tunnel, no water nearby. You try to warn the engineer's clerk. He laughs, says you've been breathing methane too long. You say nothing more. Because you understand. It's already begun. You return one final time. Not to explore. To close the gate. You and the boy descend at midnight. The torch won't light at first. The walls are warmer than ever. The rats follow you in a line, not fearful, but reverent. You reach the gate. It is open, and something is inside. It watches you, not with eyes, but with knowing. You light your torch. You step forward. You raise the oil. You burn it. You burn it all. The next morning, the ground trembles beneath the forum. Stones crack. A section of the Cloaca Maxima collapses, burying the lower tunnels. A bridge over the Tiber crumbles. A latrine in the Temple of Saturn belches black smoke for 3 days. No one connects the dots. Just bad plumbing, they say. Another day in the greatest city on earth. Rome stood for centuries, a colossus of order, war, law, and pride. But beneath its columns, beneath its conquests, flowed waste. Rivers of it, managed by men with no names, no statues, no histories. Men who knew what everyone else wanted to forget, that empires, like bodies, are only as clean as their bowels, that greatness, built on filth, must rot eventually, that beneath every golden city lies a tunnel, waiting to wake. The sun is barely up, but the scribe stylus is already scratching clay. In the heart of Babylon, past the temple gates in the shadow of the ziggurat, you sit cross-legged on a reed mat, bent over a damp tablet, tracing symbols into the soft surface. Not letters, not quite, but cuneiform, a wedge-shaped script that hold the empire together. You are a junior scribe in the bureaucracy of Babylon. You do not fight wars. You do not pray at altars. You do not bake bread. But you are the reason the priests eat, the soldiers march, and the bread is weighed and distributed. Because in Babylon, if it is not written, it does not exist. The people think of Babylon as a city of Ishtar, goddess of love and war, or of Hammurabi, who carve his laws in black stone. But you see the city differently. You see a warehouse of clay, rations for temple workers, deliveries from barley farmers, receipts for cattle, contract for marriage, divorce, debt, and adoption, lists of names, slaves, oxen, boats, inventories of bread, always bread. You are apprenticed to a senior scribe named Enlil Bani. He wears a seal around his neck and smells of oil and old reed ink. His voice never rises above a murmur. He once told you, the city does not breathe without the stylus. You believed him. You still do. At the core of it all is bread. In Babylon, bread is more than food. It is currency, contract, offering, and measure. Every worker receives rations, mostly barley, some oil, occasionally beer, calculated to fraction. Your job is to record these flows. Today, you're assigned a bakery tablets, a collection of clay rectangles cataloging every grain of barley given to each temple baker. Each line, name of baker, quantity of flour received, number of loaves baked, weight of loaves returned, discrepancy, if any, penalty, if any. You record dozens per hour. You do not ask questions, but you notice patterns. Baker you are Marduk is always short by 4 loaves. Baker Shamhat returns loaves heavier than the flour could allow. You point this out to your master. He gives you a long look, then says, the temple is not blind. It is tolerant. You ask what that means. He replies, everyone eats, but not everyone chews honestly. You learn, slowly, that the system survives by flexibility, not precision. Clay may record the law, but people shape the law with fingerprints and fire. You're granted permission to visit the actual bakery. The heat hits you like a wall. Massive clay ovens line the walls. Slaves and laborers move with urgency, covered in flour and sweat. The floor is coated in grain dust. The air smells of yeast and ash. You watch a girl, no older than 10, kneading dough with feet bare, arms taut. Another stokes a fire with palm fronds. A third scrapes burned crust off a stone plate. None of them speak. They don't have to. They are the labor behind your tablets. You return to your office that afternoon and look at the symbol for a loaf. For the first time, you feel its weight. Being a scribe is a privilege. You can read. You can write. You know the names of kings, the shapes of the stars, the price of oxen, and the height of the Euphrates in the dry months. But you are also a servant of the temple, a tool of the court. You cannot write what you see, only what is allowed. Once, a boy tried to record protest, an entry about unfair treatment, hunger, theft. The tablet never left the scriptorium. The boy did. He was reassigned to the river. No one saw him again. You learn the lesson. Clay records truth, but only permitted truth. Later that week, you're asked to help with the grain tax tablets. You notice discrepancies, farms reporting yield far beyond what is possible. You cross-check tablets. The same seal appears across all. It's a temple official. You bring it to Enlil Bani. He gently takes the tablet from you. Some weights are best left unbalanced, he says. He does not return it. The next day, a new entry appears. Your apprenticeship is complete. You're now a full scribe. And yet you wonder, how many lives live forever in baked clay? You're a full scribe now. It means better sandals, a cleaner robe, the right to carry your own stylus. It also means longer hours, less truth. You now work in a record house, a temple archive filled with thousands of baked tablets, some so old they crumble when touched. The dust of forgotten laws coats your fingers. You sort them, copy them, burn the ones you're told to. Not all clay survives. Every day, you scratch symbols that shape lives. You write contracts, a gold exchange for 2 jars of oil. You write judgments, a field disputed between brothers. You write death notices, a man who drowned retrieving driftwood. You write rations, 3 liters of barley for the widow of a wounded soldier. Some scribes write hymns. You do not. You write ledgers. Because Babylon survives on grain and you track every seed. One morning, a woman enters the archive. This is rare. Women in Babylon work. They weave, brew, serve, but they rarely come to the record house. She carries a personal seal, carved lapis, shaped like a stalk of barley. Her robe is plain, but her posture is not. She's a widow, she says. Her late husband managed 3 grain silos south of the Ishtar Gate. Now she manages them. She shows you her tablet, a ration ledger. You recognize it. You wrote the original. She asks why her numbers don't match the temple copy. You have no answer. You ask Enlil Bani. He says, widows forget how numbers work. You remember her eyes, sharp, tired, unafraid. You start keeping a second set of tablets. Quietly, in a basket under your bench. 1 set for the temple. 1 set for the truth. Your duties expand. You begin copying the astronomical reports, star positions, eclipse predictions, planetary movements. Babylon's astrologers are precise. They track the heavens as carefully as you track grain. But one day, you notice something strange. The same star, recorded in the same position, appears twice under different names. You ask an elder scribe. He chuckles. Sometimes kings want a good omen. Sometimes they pay for it. You realize even the sky can be edited. One of your newest tasks is to document the inheritance of the dead. When a man dies, his land is divided, his debts called in, his servants listed. You notice a pattern. Land left to daughters is often reassigned by the time the clay is baked. Seals are altered, symbols smudged. You question it once. You are told, the dead do not argue, but the daughters do. They come to the archive in tears. They bring worn sandals, callous hands, and useless tablets with unreadable names. You want to help. You cannot, so you bake another copy. And the lie becomes history. That spring, the Euphrates floods early. Crops are lost. Storehouses rot. Your ledgers show enough barley to feed the city. But your eyes say otherwise. You walk through the outer districts. You see lines of people outside ration posts. You see fathers trading boots for bread. You see children chewing reeds to silence their hunger. You write a report. It disappears. Another scribe, one with better connections, publishes a different version. He says the harvest was abundant. He receives a new robe. You receive silence. One night, a tablet cracks in the kiln. Not uncommon. But this one held a record of debt forgiveness, a rare grant from the king himself. The crack obscures the seal. Now the debt is unclear. The borrower begs. The lender insists. You are told to re-record it. You choose the borrower's version. Later, Enlil Bani calls you aside. There is clay. And there is stone, he says. We shape clay. but stone shapes us. You don't sleep that night, not from guilt, from the weight of choice. And you wonder, when all the scribes are gone, and only clay remains, will the lies outnumber the truth? You are tired, not from labor. Your work is still writing, still counting, still watching others toil under the sun. No, your exhaustion is deeper, a weight that settles beneath the ribs. It comes from knowing that the truth has shape, but not permanence. Clay can lie, and you have helped it do so. It begins quietly. The northern gate burns, a merchant dispute turned riot. Grain shortages worsen. Barley meant for rations has vanished, redirected, you suspect, to noble houses on the river. Crowds form near the temple of Marduk. Angry, hungry, someone throws a jar. The next morning, the wrecker house is sealed. You are told to stop copying. You are told to burn excess tablets. You are told, very clearly, not to look back. But you do. You slip into the archive at dusk, when no one watches. You open the basket under your bench, your second set of tablets. The real ledgers, the unaltered reports, the truth. You stare at them for a long time. Then you begin to bury them. Not far from the ziggurat is an old kiln long out of use. You dig beneath it, torch in hand. The earth is soft. The ground yields. One by one, you place the truth beneath Babylon's skin, pressed in clay, wrapped in cloth, kissed by the flame of your breath. The widow's correct accounts, the unpaid rations, the falsified omens, the empty granaries, the cracked debt tablet, both versions. You do not leave a name. You do not expect anyone to read them, but you bury them anyway, because even if no one listens now, clay is patient. Your mentor finds you the next morning. He does not ask questions, only says, "We do not own the words we write, but we are responsible for them." Then he hands you a fresh, unbaked tablet, blank. You understand. It is time to start again, not to rewrite, but to record, faithfully, quietly, carefully, because civilizations do not fall in fire. They crumble on falsified ledgers. Months pass. The ziggurat still shines. The scribes still scratch. The temple still chants. But something has shifted. The river no longer rises like it used to. The king grows old. His seal appears less and less. Merchants whisper of foreign rulers. Persians, Medes, waiting, watching. And one day, without warning, the soldiers don't show up to collect the tax. The walls are breached. The record house is abandoned. No one comes to the archives. No one comes for you. You live quietly now in the outer district. You keep a small kiln. You press letters into clay, not for kings or priests, but for students. You teach a few to read. One girl learns fast, writes her father's name in perfect cuneiform on her second day. You let her keep the tablet. The city is fading, but the words remain. Babylon, the city that first counted, first recorded, first accounted for the weight of grain and the weight of guilt, may be gone, but the scribes are still with us, in ledgers, in laws, in dusty vaults, and in truths buried beneath centuries of stone. Because even when empires fall, somewhere in the dark, a tablet waits to be read. You are not a soldier. You do not carry a musket or wear a medal. You are not in the battle reports. You have never fired a shot, but you are in Napoleon's army. You are a military cook, and you march behind the infantry with a battered cart, a rusting ladle, and an impossible task. Feed 600,000 men. It is June 1812. Napoleon has launched his most ambitious campaign, the invasion of Russia. The Grande Army is the largest military force Europe has ever seen. An empire on foot, stretching miles in every direction. They say the emperor has planned everything. Roads, supplies, routes, reinforcements. But the plan doesn't include you. Not really. The army's cook corps is understaffed, undertrained, and undervalued. You were once a tavern cook in Alsace, conscripted when your village couldn't pay its grain levy. They gave you a coat, a pot, and a wagon. That's it. No recipes. No tools. No help. Your unit feeds 120 men. You have 4 cauldrons, 1 knife, and a bag of spoiled onions. Officially, each soldier receives 750 g of bread, 250 g of meat, usually salted, 60 g of beans or lentils, a bit of brandy, sometimes coffee or dried vegetables. On paper. In reality, the bread is moldy by day 3. The meat is bone and gristle. The beans are full of weevils. The brandy is reserved for officers. The coffee is gone before the first march. You scavenge. You barter. You stretch. You mix river water, crushed biscuit, and horse marrow into something resembling soup. The men eat it anyway, because hunger outranks pride. You learn the rules of field cooking fast. Fire attracts bullets. Cook at dawn or under cover. Smoke means waste. Fuel is precious. Use dry dung or twigs. Salt hides rot. Meat that smells bad can still be boiled. Fat is gold. Skim it, save it, serve it to the sick. Never throw bones away. You'll need them tomorrow. Sometimes you dig up roots. Sometimes wild herbs. Once a rat. You called it chicken and watched 3 men cry with gratitude. You travel with live animals, goats, pigs, a few hardy chickens in baskets. They walk behind the wagons. Some die. Some are stolen. Some just vanish. The army butchers what it needs. You get the rest. You boil feet. You boil lungs. You boil what clings to the spine. You make blood sausage from a goat that collapsed near Vilnius. It tastes of iron and ash. The colonel calls it the best meal he's had in a week. You say nothing, but you wonder what his palate would say if he saw the bucket you stirred it in. By August, the supply line stretched thin. Roads disappear into mud. Rain falls for days. Wagons break. Horses collapse. Bread melts. You use your last flour ration to thicken a soup made from grass and boil harness leather. You chew slowly. The soldiers don't complain anymore. They've learned it's not your fault. You reach Smolensk, a city burning from its own retreating defenders. Napoleon takes it, declares victory. You find a pantry half intact. Barrels of rye, preserved cabbage, salted fish. It feels like a feast. You cook sauerkraut stew with vinegar and black bread. The men cheer. One sings. It's the first time anyone has smiled near your fire in weeks. The next morning, you find 5 soldiers dead. Dysentery. By September, the food is gone again. Soldiers begin to steal from each other. From the horses. From the cooks. One night, you catch a lieutenant gnawing on raw sheep hide. You don't stop him, because you've done it too. You saw a man slice his finger while carving old bacon, and lick the blood from the blade. You didn't judge him, because deep down you understand. Hunger is a soldier, too. And now, with Moscow ahead, winter near, and your cauldron empty, you wonder, what happens when there is nothing left to boil? Moscow burns. You see the orange sky days before you arrive, columns of smoke rising like wounded banners. The Russian army has abandoned the city, but left behind flames. Fires set in the granaries. Smoke rising from the bakeries. The food is gone. What wasn't burned was taken. What was taken was poisoned. Napoleon enters the city anyway. He expects negotiations. What he finds is silence. And hunger. You are assigned to a looted merchant house. The walls still warm from fire. You set up a cook fire in the cellar. It smokes. The chimney is cracked. You choke on soot. You inventory what's left. 1 moldy turnip. A jar of dried dill. 3 bricks of rye bread, half-eaten by mice. A sack of oats wet from melted snow. A dead pigeon. Bones stripped. It is more than most have. You begin boiling bone soup. Again. This time, with snow-melt and bay leaves from a nearby estate. You lie and call it stew. The men thank you. They would thank you for anything warm now. Napoleon has a palace in Moscow, commandeered from a noble family. You glimpse it once through the smoke. Chandeliers covered in frost, chairs stacked like firewood. You hear he eats from silverware, that his cooks found hidden wine cellars. You believe it. You also believe he doesn't know that you exist, because if he did, you wouldn't be cooking horse hooves over a shoe buckle in a cellar. By October, the snows fall. The pots freeze before they boil. The meat When you have it, must be shattered before it can be cut. You crack a frozen rabbit over your knee to portion it. You forget the taste of salt. You begin rationing your own food. A few cooks don't. They disappear. One was stabbed behind the stables for a scrap of charred onion. You cook quietly now, with your back to a wall. You invent new recipes. Melted candle grease with oats equals field porridge. Boot leather soaked 3 days equals infantry stew. Paper ash mixed with flour equals camp bread. Dead dog, scraped and washed, roasted over wet wood equals no name. No one asks. You once cooked a crow. The beak cracked in your pot like firewood. You stirred slowly and didn't look the soldiers in the eye when they ate. A courier arrives from the west. He says the supply lines are cut. The wagons have been overtaken. No more flour. No more barrels. No more brandy. You ask what he ate. He says, "My horse." He offers you a piece. You say yes. You chew. It is the best thing you've had in 2 weeks. Napoleon gives the order to retreat in November. The snow is waist-high. You pack your cart with what you can carry. A cracked pot, a bag of oats with lice, a tin ladle. You leave the knives. Too heavy, too dangerous. You join the column of men marching west, away from Moscow, back through ash and bone. Behind you, wolves move in packs. Ahead, the rivers are frozen. You melt snow in your mouth to keep it from bleeding. You become a moving cook fire. Each night, you build a small pit. Each day, you scrape the same pot, add new snow, new scraps, whatever bones can be found. The stew never empties, just changes. Men begin following you, not from command, but from smell. One offers you his boots for a bowl. You take them, not because you need boots, but because he needed to believe he had something left to trade. In the silence of that march, the only sound is snow beneath boots, coughs, horse legs cracking, wood splintering, ladles scraping. You no longer dream of food, only of warmth, of a bed, of your tavern back in Alsace. You wonder what soup you were making the day you left. And now, as the snow piles deeper, the rations disappear and your firewood runs out. You ask yourself, will you feed men who have eaten everything but each other? There are fewer of you now, not just fewer soldiers, fewer cooks. You pass a frozen ladle in the snow near Vyazma, stuck in the hand of a man still kneeling, eyes open. He died boiling nothing, just snow and memory. You leave him, because if you stop for every frozen body, you never move again. Your unit, what's left of it, eats once every 2 days. You boil, bark, moss, horsehair, rope, leather, parchment scrolls from a looted church. You used to call these meals. Now, they are rituals, not to nourish, but to remember that you're still alive. A man across from you mumbles prayers as he drinks broth made from the glue scraped off a saddle. You don't know his name. You've stopped asking. By December, firewood is more valuable than food. You cook with splinters, chair legs, pages of orders from Napoleon's own staff. You boil in half-melted helmets. One night, you try to warm your fingers over a tin pot. Your thumb breaks. It just breaks. The skin split. The bone brittle. Cold does that. You wrap it in your apron. You keep stirring. Because if the soup stops, they die faster. No one says it. But everyone knows. A man disappears in the night. Next morning, someone finds meat roasting in a dented pan. No one asks. No one admits. But the eyes of the man stirring the pot are red. His hands shake. His mouth doesn't move while he chews. You're too tired to be horrified. You just move your cart a little farther away that night. Word spreads. Napoleon has left the army. Gone ahead. Escaped the cold, the lice, the eyes of starving men. You don't feel betrayal. You feel confirmation. He never knew your name. Never tasted your soup. Never saw the men sob over boiled bones. He took his war and left you the frost. At the Berezina River, the retreat turns to panic. Bridges collapse. Men drown. Artillery sinks. Wagons fall through ice. Screams vanish under the water. You throw your last pot into the river. too heavy to carry, too full of death to matter. You walk across the ice barefoot. Your boots burned days ago to warm a single tin cup of snowmelt. You don't look down. You don't look back. By the time you cross into friendly territory, you weigh less than a boy. You no longer feel hunger. Your stomach forgot how. You no longer cook. There is nothing left to cook, and no one left to cook for. You collapse in a bar near the Polish border, too cold to cry. Someone gives you a boiled potato. You stare at it. You weep, not for the war, not for the emperor, but because you can smell salt. You return to Alsace. Your tavern is gone, burned in a tax riot. You open a stall in the market square. You make soup, simple, honest, hot, no bones of men, no lies, just carrots, barley, and meat when you can afford it. Some say your broth tastes different, rich, dark, unforgettable. They ask for your recipe. You say, it's a long march. They laugh. You don't. History remembers Napoleon's march as a military disaster, a story of frost and retreat, of arrogance and loss. But beneath every campaign there were fires, pots, cooks, men who fed armies with scraps, boiled hunger into discipline, and stirred spoons with frostbitten hands. They left no journals, no memoirs, no portraits, only ashes. But they were there, in the smoke, in the silence between battles, in the taste of the last hot meal before the long, cold road. The year is 1847. You stand outside the iron gates of the East Riding Union workhouse, hands trembling, clothes stiff with dried mud and salt sweat. You haven't eaten since yesterday. You haven't slept properly in a week. The parish has denied your request for relief. Your choices are gone. You walk through the gate. You are now an inmate of the workhouse. They call it relief, but there is no comfort inside. The new poor law of 1834 has changed everything. No more outdoor relief. No more pennies given freely to the starving. Now, poverty is criminalized. If you want help, you must earn it. Not with labor, with submission. The workhouse is punishment for being poor. Everything here is designed to break you. Your clothes are taken. Your name is recorded. Your family is separated. Men, women, and children live apart. You are washed, examined, and ranked by condition. You're issued the uniform, gray wool, rough, shapeless, identical. You're no longer a person. You are a burden in need of discipline. The workhouse is governed like a prison. The master enforces rules. The matron manages the female wards. The guardians, distant, bureaucratic overseers, rarely appear. The master doesn't smile. He smells of ink and starch. He reads aloud the regulations each Monday. You must listen, even if you've heard them 10 times. Talking is forbidden during meals, during work, and during walks. Laughter is suspect. Complaints are punishable. Silence is survival. You are assigned to dormitory block C, 20 men to a room. The beds are wooden planks with straw-filled sacks. No sheets. One thin blanket. No pillows. You lie down the first night and listen to the coughs, the scratching, the murmurs. The man beside you rocks as he sleeps. You wonder what he dreams about. You hope it's food. The next morning, you join the line for breakfast. You are handed a tin bowl of gruel, watery oats, barely warm, one slice of stale bread, a cup of coffee, chicory and ash water, no milk, no sugar. You may not speak. You may not ask for more. You eat quickly, quietly, gratefully. The man across from you hides half his bread in his coat. You say nothing, because you'll likely do the same tomorrow. You are deemed able-bodied. Your task is stone-breaking. You are given a hammer, a pile of granite, and a number. You must break the stones into pieces small enough to pass through a metal grate. You do this for 10 hours. If you work too slowly, your dinner is delayed. If you stop, you are punished. If you speak, you are warned. You are not paid. You are not praised. You are processed. You work until your hands blister and the skin beneath your nails bleeds. Not everyone is here by choice. Some are sent by magistrates, arrested for vagrancy, drunkenness, loitering. The workhouse holds them. 2. They were the same gray wool, They eat the same bread, but their eyes are different. Some angry, some lost. One man claims he was a soldier. Another says he used to be a schoolteacher. You believe them, but here it doesn't matter. Everyone's story ends at the same ledger line. You catch glimpses of the children on your way to the yard. They are kept apart. They wear smaller versions of your uniform. They line up for school lessons, reading, writing, numbers. But mostly they are taught to be quiet. Some are orphans. Some were taken from parents who were unfit. You hear one girl crying one night. The matron doesn't comfort her. Instead, she closes the door. At day's end, you are allowed to walk in the yard. 15 minutes. No talking. You walk in a square. You feel the frost rising off the flagstones. You stare at the sky. It is your only freedom. A bird lands on the wall. It flies away again. You envy it. And as you return to your dormitory, your hands raw, your stomach still empty, your thoughts fading into gray, you ask yourself, what happens to a person when the system forgets they're still human? It is your third week in the East Riding workhouse. You no longer notice the smell. You no longer flinch when the bells ring. You no longer dream. Because here, the only thing worse than hunger is hope. The rules are printed on a board in the main hall. No talking during meals. No interaction between genders. No refusal of assigned labor. No external visitors unless sanctioned. No literature except religious. Each infraction carries punishment, reduced rations, removal of firewood, confinement in the dark cell, expulsion to the streets again. You learn them not because they're posted. You learn them because they're enforced. You see a man return from it. Lloyd, a weaver with missing teeth and a fading voice. His crime was stealing a second slice of bread for his bunkmate, who was sick. They kept him 2 nights in the dark cell. No blanket, no heat, just stone and silence. He doesn't speak much after that. He flinches at candlelight. His eyes never rise above his boots. You catch a fever. Your fingers swell. Your throat burns. You're moved to the infirmary, a long room lined with cots and silence. You share the space with the dying, delirious, forgotten. The infirmary nurse is hard, practical. She gives you willow bark tea and little else. She tells you to rest. Then she tells the man beside you to be still. Then she covers him with a sheet. No bell, no words, no prayer, just one less body on the tally. Each Sunday, all inmates are marched into the chapel. You sit on hard benches, gray robes, gray faces. The Reverend reads from Proverbs. The idle soul shall suffer hunger, but the hand of the diligent mocketh rich. You know the verse. You've lived it, but you also know the hardest working man in your dormitory hasn't smiled in weeks, and the master hasn't missed a meal. One day, you glimpse someone nodding gray, a visitor, possibly, or a benefactor. She wears a pale blue cloak. Not rich, but clean. She speaks with the matron. She nods. She gestures toward the children's ward. You watch through the bars on the stairwell. She leaves a parcel behind. Later that night, the children receive apples. Red, sweet, fresh. You hear them laugh once. A boy tries to save his core, hides it under his blanket. The next morning, it's gone. There is a rumor, a strike in Manchester, a mill burned in Leeds, a child trampled outside a factory gate. You hear these things whispered in the yard, passed from man to man like crumbs. You don't know if they're true, but they remind you there is still a world beyond the gates, even if it doesn't remember you. One day, a man enters the hall. He wears a bowler hat, carries a leather satchel. He speaks with the master, then walks the dormitories. He says he's from the Poor Law Board, come to inspect conditions. He asks questions. How's the food? Do you feel safe? Are you receiving fair treatment? No one answers, because behind him stands a matron, and no one survives punishment for honesty. He leaves a note. He thanks the master. Nothing changes. One night, you're assigned to help the clerk burn old records. You carry boxes from the archive to the yard furnace. Inside, you glimpse ledgers from 30 years ago. names, dates, occupations, illnesses, causes of death, all in neat columns. I'll ask now, you wonder, how many people were erased before they were ever remembered, and how long before your name joins them? As the fire consumes the last of the paper, you stare into the embers and ask yourself, what is the value of a life if it is recorded only in silence and erased in smoke? You don't count the days anymore. The seasons change outside. You notice only because the dormitory grows colder and the gruel thinner. You become part of the building. Another shadow in wool, another cough in the corridor, another silent figure in the chapel. But you still breathe, and that somehow still matters. A man dies in the night. No one cries. No one prays. The infirmary nurse writes a note. A porter fetches a cart. The man is taken to the pauper's graveyard. No stone, just a numbered plank at the edge of a mass trench. You ask the nurse what he died of. She shrugs. Same as the rest. Cold and too many Wednesdays. You do not ask again. Weeks later, a letter arrives. Addressed to you. It's from your sister, the one who married into a shopkeeper's family. She thought you had gone abroad. She says her husband has passed, that she now lives alone in Burlington. She asks if you are well, if you are safe, if you are still alive. You write back, not with details, not with grief, just a short line. Still breathing, still waiting, still me. You're not sure if you'll send it. The cost of postage is more than you have. A boy arrives, no older than 9. He's thin, quiet, hair cropped, eyes like glass. No parents, found begging near the docks. He is placed in the children's ward. You see him from the stairwell, watching the yard below, not moving, not blinking, just watching. You remember yourself at that age. You leave a heel of bread outside his door the next night. The next morning, it's gone. Nothing is said, but you leave another the next day. Some inmates stop attending chapel. Others feign illness to avoid work. A few pass notes between wards. These small resistances rarely succeed, but they matter, because in a place where your will is rationed, any act of quiet choice is a form of survival. You begin to keep a journal, not on paper, but in your mind, a list of names, faces, moments, notable not for their grandeur, but for their humanity. The man who whistled while scrubbing the floors, the woman who sewed her own cuffs from rags, the nurse who slipped you extra vinegar when your gums bled, the matron who once smiled, just once, at a joke she wasn't supposed to hear. You memorize them like scripture, because no one else will. One day, the woman in blue returns. This time, she asks to see the records. She is no longer just a donor. She's a journalist. You don't speak to her, but you see her watching the men eat. You see her take notes when a boy cries after being separated from his brother. You see her eyes narrow at the dark cell door. She leaves without ceremony. But a month later, a clerk arrives from London. The master retires soon after. No one says why. Your health declines. The clerk marks your name with a red line in the attendance book. You are moved to the infirmary, bed 14. Same view of the wall, same ticking candle. You feel your body shrinking, your mind slowing, but you still count the days. Because counting means remembering, and remembering means you still matter. The workhouse was never meant to help. It was designed to remind the poor of their place, not by whip, but by silence, by bland food, by gray cloth, by rooms full of people whose names vanish as fast as the ink in the ledgers. But in every one of those ledgers is a life, yours included. You may not be remembered in history books, but for one brief moment, your breath warmed the cold stone of Britain's most pitiless institution, and somewhere, perhaps, your name still survives, pressed into a crumbling page, waiting to be read. The sound of artillery wakes you, not the blast. You're used to that. It's the stillness that follows, the way the windows shudder, then settle, the way the snow seems to pause in midair, waiting for the next blow. You are 23 years old, female, civilian, resident of Block 15, Kirovsky District. You are not a soldier. You are not a nurse. You are not a politician or spy or saboteur. You are simply alive in Leningrad, November 1941, and that in itself is a form of rebellion. The German army encircles the city. The Finns cut off access from the north. The Luftwaffe drops bombs nightly. No food goes in. No people go out. Over 2.5 million civilians, including 400,000 children, remain trapped. The government says to endure. The party says to be strong. The radio says nothing anymore. You say nothing too, because speech takes energy. Your most prized possession is not a coat, not a weapon. It's your bread card, issued by the city, stamped each week, worth more than rubles, worth more than gold. It entitles you to 125 grams of bread per day, roughly a slice. Not even that. Really, by now the bread is made from rye flour, sawdust, cellulose, ground peas, burned grain, floor sweepings from a flour mill. It is gray, damp, heavy. It tastes like paper and ash. But you chew it slowly, because you do not know if you will eat again tomorrow. Once a week, you line up at the communal kitchen. They call it soup, but it's hot water with a few cabbage leaves, maybe a piece of fish skin, or, if you're lucky, a potato peel. No one speaks in line. A child collapses. No one helps. If you bend down, you might not get back up. You stare straight ahead and try to remember what warm felt like. You are still expected to work. You sweep a corridor in the library, a place where no one reads anymore because the pages are being burned for heat. You wear 3 layers of clothing. None of them keep out the cold. Your boots have no soles. You wrap your feet in newspaper. You keep moving, because those who stop rarely start again. Hunger changes you. It dulls your hearing, blurs your eyes. Your hair falls out. Your nails go gray. Your legs swell, then shrink. Your thoughts slow. You can no longer feel your fingertips. You cannot cry. There is no moisture for tears. Your body digests itself. Start with fat, then muscle, then, if needed, your organs. You begin to dream of bread, of real bread, but not to eat, just to hold, to smell. You've eaten. Shoe leather, wallpaper glue, it contains flour, frozen cats, sawdust, candle wax, belt loops, toothpaste, library bindings. Once, your neighbor traded you a button for a spoon of fish broth. You accepted. It was the best meal of the week. On rare days, the radio plays music. Shostakovich, written during the siege, broadcast on loop. They say it keeps morale up. You sit in the library, floors swept, hands numb, and listen to a symphony that no one has the strength to dance to. You close your eyes. The music fills your ribs like a meal, almost. And as the temperature drops to minus 30 degrees Celsius, and your weight falls below 80 pounds, and the city creaks with silence and snow, you ask yourself, how many days can a person survive on memory alone? It is January 1942. You are still alive, but most of your building is not. You step over your neighbor's body on the stairwell. He froze overnight, wrapped in blankets, hands clutching a sack of grain husks. He had hidden them, died protecting them. No one touches the sack, because taking from the dead is a line, and once you cross it, there are no more lines. Inside your room, the window is stuffed with rags. The floorboards crack from frost. The air is so still, your breath sounds like thunder. The wallpaper has been peeled, boiled weeks ago for its paste. You sleep under your coat. You keep your boots on, because if you take them off at night, you may not get them back on, because your feet may no longer be yours in the morning. In the library's kitchen, one's a lunchroom for school children, you discover a new recipe, sawdust pancakes. Mix equal parts sawdust and floor sweepings. Add water. Press flat. Heat on a hot stone until vaguely solid. It's bitter, dry, sharp in your throat, but it fills your belly for a few hours. A small miracle. A dangerous one. The girl who eats too many sawdust cakes collapses from intestinal bleeding. You promise yourself 2 a day, no more. But when the cold sets in and the wind hisses through the broken windows, you break that promise. Your ration card is stolen. You don't notice at first. It's tucked in your coat lining, under the second button. But when you reach for it in the queue, it's gone. The woman behind you avoids your gaze. The boy in front of you shuffles away. You say nothing, because there is no justice in Leningrad now, only hunger, and what people are willing to do for one more day. You report anyway. The officer shrugs. You are issued a replacement. It's stamped for only 50 grams a day, a penalty for negligence. Half a slice. You hold the new car like a death sentence. You go home and burn your shoelaces.